Hello and welcome in the Lokayat conversation. We have a very special guest today with us, Dr. Manisha Bangar. She's her professional accomplishments are very a matter of pride for anyone. And today we will be speaking about not only her professional achievements but also her commitment to society, which she has been engaged with last 25 years. Dr. Manisha Bagar is a gastroenterologist, transplant hepatologist. She has been an MBBS, MD, and DM, which is very from Nagpur University, and she has been associated and worked with various prestigious institutions, including GB Pant Hospital in Delhi, uh, other institutions in Chandigarh like PGI Chandigarh and in Mumbai, and now she is based in Hyderabad. She is part of the National Association of the Study of Liver and Hepatitis B. So has presented numerous papers on these issues, not only in India, but internationally. So we will be discussing this because it is a rare combination of a person with the professional achievements and equally devoting a time for the social causes, particularly the Bahujan Samaj, the Mool Nivasi Mahila Andolan. So welcome Manisha ji in our show today.
Thank you, Vidyabhushan ji. Thanks for the kind introduction.
You have been very active in the social movements. So very few people know about your professional achievements. And because what happens is that we ignore that part also many times.
Yeah.
So how has this combination happened? Like you're a doctor, a medical doctor of that higher level, and then you're giving time in the society. That how do you divide this? How did this happen?
Yeah, before I start that, let me also add one recent development is that I've been selected in the Harris School of Public Policy, University of Chicago, for the master's program in public policy. So I will be pursuing public policy. And I've also been given a teaching assignment in University of Chicago, Harris School of Public Policy. So I just thought that, since you were talking about.
So it's a congratulations to you, and we would definitely like to hear from you. What are you going to do there? And how is your work going to help India in that way?
Yes. So coming back to your first question is that how did it happen? It's a very, very often asked question, and that how do I divide my time? But then there's a long journey of about 20 years plus for that to happen, and of course a lot has to be is associated with how we were brought up, where we were brought up, and the legacy which came from my mother's side as well as from my father's side, which was the Phule Ambedkarite legacy. So to kind of summarize it or kind of put it in a nutshell, if I at every step, every phase of life, whether it was student life, childhood life, or student life, or and then postgraduate life, and then pre-married and married life, and then today. So at each and every juncture, there were three very important elements which I ensured, which earlier my parents ensured, my surrounding people ensured, and then later on I took care to ensure those things. One is to have a clear-cut Phule Ambedkarite tradition in place. Secondly was to, at each and every juncture, be very conscious of thwarting out the Brahminical mindset and the actions which flowed from Brahminical mindset at a personal level, familial level, as well as societal level. So I can see my life, being a big struggle as well as a huge the journey. Most part of it was thwarting it out. And thirdly was to develop a kind of a system within my own personal space, familial space, and professional and societal space, and infrastructure, which will allow me to carry on with my, uh, you know, what do you call the purpose of life, which has to be bigger than a career. And this particular thing, definitely, I would like to, keep the inspiration for this, and my inspiring figures would be no less than Dr. Ambedkar to begin with, because the place, Nagpur, where I was born, the Indora area, where my grandparent, my father's father was born, his family was born. And then the entire North Nagpur, we were staying very adjacent. As the socioeconomic condition improved and my father got a government job, his name was Mr. Bhagwat Rangari. So as soon as he got, then they were given a depressed class of society, which was later called as a Tirpude colony or Thavre colony. So that was a government initiative. So they moved from a kacha house to a pakka house, so though he was a corporator, from my father's side, my paternal grandfather was a corporator. He was involved with a lot of social initiatives. He still has a whole street named in his name. And the legacy for the tradition for academic focusing and excellence was prior to my generation in my family. So you have Mr. K.K. Rangari, my father's elder brother, who was the first IAS of that area among the Bahujan community. He was also a lawyer. He worked with on many cases that Dr. Ambedkar was handling as a junior. Very later, then he came into IAS. My uncle, another uncle, E.K. Rangari, he was a civil magistrate. My another uncle, he was a manager in BHEL. He was an IIT person. And then my aunts, and also it was quite a lot of education based focusing, which led to them to be at a better positions. From my mom's side, my grandfather and my grandmother, they both were very socially oriented. My grandfather, Nana Sahib Dongre, as he was a very social figure in Amravati, and that was where most of the students used to come and stay. And Mr. Rasu Gavai and Ganar, and then Mr. Dr. Ambedkar himself used to come, because there was he was a general postmaster at that time. And so they were a little well off, and his house was the main place where, all these activities would happen. The Ambedkarite activity, Dr. Ambedkar himself used to stay over there. Then gradually, it so happened that my elder maternal uncle, Mr. Sharad Dongre, and then elder to Shripad Dongre. So Mr. Dongre's wife, Dr. Ambedkar saw her, and then saw Nana Sahib Dongre was also my my grandfather was getting initiated into the Ambedkarite movement. So he saw this thing in Sulochana Bai Dongre. Sulochana Bai Dongre is my maternal aunt. So she got initiated, then she worked with Dr. Ambedkar for a long time. And then when the 1942 conference happened, at that time she was the president of the conference.
The scheduled caste,
yes, SCF conference, yeah, Scheduled Caste Federation conference. Yeah. So she was the president of the conference. Yeah. And then Sulochana Bai Dongre has a huge legacy behind her. That definitely came into my mom and my mom's side. Also, my elder aunt, she retired as a director of social welfare. My mother herself was a PhD scholar. She retired as a faculty of Nagpur University. And my other uncles, superintendent engineer. So they were doing good, and they were carrying all this legacy. So all this kind of shaped me. And very early in life, I knew that I would be pursuing, apart from my academics. Dr. Ambedkar was a huge, huge inspiration, because all the time we used to be hearing that despite his, being so professionally so phenomenally great, still he could have been in US and he could have been here, but he dedicated everything. So that got instilled, and we actually saw people doing it right in front of us. My elder aunt's husband, Mr. S.M. Ramteke, he was a very big Bidi Mazdoor lawyer. He used to, fight cases for the Bidi Mazdoor in Bhandara for so many times. Like ours was an open space for Bidi Mazdoor and all the working class people. So this social commitment, giving, and actually sacrificing at the behest of your own comforts is something which I grew up with all the while. And then on to top it all, I was also living in Indora and Thavri Colony, where I saw all the struggles of our people. So we were at a threshold, at a higher level of socioeconomic stability, but then we saw people all around, my neighbors, my people. They were the caste discrimination, the discrimination of the system on them, the Brahminical system on them, and how as within the Nagpur, this settlement used to be so separate, and then, but it also, more than that, it developed the ethos of that identity was very strong. That identity was very strong. And that struggle element came on very strong. And yeah, so it really shaped me that way.
So you come from that region. I've been to Indora, and I go to Nagpur regularly, particularly on the Diksha Bhumi during the Dhammachakra Pravartan Day. That is definitely a place of revolution. I think I always feel immensely proud of being there and associated there, whatever way it is. So thank you for sharing this very, very informative thing, which gives us a background how you are so clear, because Maharashtra, this tradition comes from the family. Phule Ambedkar tradition, when people grow up, they become very strong in ideological perspective.
Yes, yes. Subsequently, when I was in MBBS and MD times, then there were organizations who were taking, like Doctors Ambedkar Medical Association and many more associations. So I used to keep myself aligned with them, whereas at the same time, I had to dedicate a lot of time for my studies. But then that continued. Subsequently, when I was in PGI Chandigarh, my search for, an organization, my uncle, Sharad Dongre, he was associated with Kanshi Ramji, and he was the first person who introduced us to BAMSIF when I was in my 8th or 9th standard. At that time, the conference was happening in Besenbagh ground in Nagpur. And he would frequently come to Nagpur to attend these meetings. So we got initiated to those ideas also. Of course, Republican Party and all that political framework was already existing, but this new organizational framework started becoming more clearer to me. And then my hunt for a very good organization where I will be able to contribute intellectually, educationally, in a very streamlined manner, rather than, being a haphazard or anything. I was very clear that I have to utilize my time very properly, not take by trial and error method. Of course, trial and error method does happen because as we as a society do not have an organizational capital, but still I was sure that I didn't want to waste too much of my time. So I took time to decide. And then subsequently, when I was pursuing my DM degree in Delhi, that time I got introduced to BAMSIF and I became a member. That was way back in 97. So those things continued after marriage. Thankfully, the person that I chose, I made it very clear to him that my social commitments and activities will go on. And he had to agree to that. Only that was a very formidable condition in front of him. And then he agreed to it. And my parents were also, my in-laws are also very socially oriented. And they are Phule Ambedkarite family. So it went on. And then subsequently, during my married years also, I took a conscious effort to dedicate a lot of time to the social cause. And for that, I had to sacrifice heavily on my earnings, sacrifice heavily on my profits in my profession, sacrifice heavily on this. But still, I was trying to do the best here in this area, as well as continue in BAMSIF and other organizations, offshoot organizations, where from a district level, then I came to the state level and then national level leadership. So it went on like that.
Yeah, this is actually rare, because what happens in today's time, we see people, move from one organization to another organization, another to another one, and then, forget the name of the organization they were in. So, but yes, I've seen your association with the Mool Nivasi Andolan and BAMSIF from very beginning, and you continue to be there. Yes. One of the things, because now you are leading also the Mool Nivasi Mahila wing of BAMSEP, and you contested
No,
election.
sorry, I'll correct you over there. I was the national president in 2008 to 2012.
Achha,
So
2008 to 2012.
subsequently, I was the national vice president of the main BAMSEF organization. Then thereafter, I was given the responsibility. Then I took a plunge in politics by joining the political party that we floated, People's Party of India. I was national vice president. Now I'm a member of both the organization. I'm a founder member of the party, and of course, the former national vice president of BAMSEF.
So it often happens because you are coming from Nagpur, and which is actually a very different place. Obviously, it's a land of revolution, a land of change makers, social changers. So there is a little bit of difference, because elsewhere we found out the people may claim they are Ambedkarite, they are Phulevadis, whatever. But when the question of gender comes, the prejudices remain in the families. So have you faced these kind of prejudices, or have you not faced, or have you seen them elsewhere? How do you respond to that?
Let me tell you, because for one to understand whether we are facing prejudices or not, whether what's happening to us is emanating from a Brahminical tradition or a Brahminical mindset, which is so overwhelmingly present in the societal framework. One has to get acquainted not only by imagery or by symbolism, but by actual knowledge. And therefore, because why does this happen? I've seen very individualistic people who are doing great as far as social commitment is concerned, but their clarity, even at 50 years of age or 40 years of age or 30 years of age, their clarity is horrible. And that's because they have not got acquainted with the body of knowledge of Phule Shahu Periyar. And they claim to be. And for them, what is their body of knowledge? Their body of knowledge becomes hearsay. What they have heard other person quoting Ambedkar, what they have heard anybody giving a speech on Ambedkar or Phule Sahab, or this, they do not have their own framework. They have not crystallized their own thinking around it. They have not contemporized their already existing body of knowledge. But for some reason, I do not know how, but then very early in life, I got introduced to Dr. Ambedkar's literature. I remember when I was hardly in my 10th or 9th, I was voraciously reading Dr. Ambedkar's literature, which was already in my house and at my aunt's house, which was in Bhandara. It was a huge place. He was a lawyer. There was literature right from JF Kennedy. He used to be writing letters to JF Kennedy and all the international leaders. So, and he was acquainted with the communist movement. So I had a variety of people around me. And in that library, I remember spending most of my time. At the same time, my maternal grandmother, she got initiated around the same time after Dr. Ambedkar's conversion, and then it kind of came upon her. By the time she was, beyond her 70s and we were young, she herself became a Buddhist nun. Okay. And then she introduced us to more of Buddhism. Okay. So those values. So you can imagine getting the best of the best.
Yes.
Something which people get at 60, 70 years of age at the back end of their life. That was something we were getting in the best form very early in life. And, and then the rational based approach, not but the ritualistic approach, not the something, but then self-knowledge, self-evaluation and self-initiation. So all those things. Then I remember, with Abhishanji, when I was in Bombay after getting married, I was in Bombay for a short period of time. And before that also, my escape from my professional thing would be reading Dr. Ambedkar's literature. I used to feel so good about it. When I used to open his pages, I used to get transported into some other world. And all the situations that I was facing during my graduation, post-graduation days, whether caste discrimination or gender discrimination or harassment, all the answers were over there, and I could literally correlate to that. I could understand what it meant, how it manifested today, how it manifested that time. And I had answers to too many things with me. I was telling you about being in Bombay for a short period of time when we were not living in Malabar Hill, but we were living slightly away from my hospital. I had to travel by local. And as soon as I would stand in the local, I would open my Dr. Ambedkar's volume and start reading. That's how I imbibe everything. It was not never has there any time been where I had ample amount of time and I was sitting here and reading Dr. Ambedkar literature, somebody giving me those books. No, nothing. So it just went on. I remember when I was pregnant and Ananya was born, my daughter was born, she was small. So I knew that I had to again wake her up to feed her after some time. So those 4 hours, I would read, I remember reading A.H. Saronke, Chhatrapati Shahu's, Mama Deshmukh, and all the Mulyawasi literature. So at every phase of life, I just continued, gaining the knowledge part and equipping myself, and that was amazing. That was amazing.
The change that we have witnessed in Maharashtra are more cultural actually, and the cultural changes bring the real changes.
Transformation, yes.
Because what we needed, we can critique Brahmanism, but we have to provide alternative of Brahmanism to
Yes.
people, because that is where the problem is starting. Baba Sahib has clearly given us the alternative.
Yes.
But so far people love Baba Sahib, respecting, but when this alternative comes, there is
yes, yeah,
no
so yeah,
unanimity.
exactly. So whereas many women wouldn't come to know whether they are being discriminated or not, whether as a daughter-in-law or as a daughter, what's happening to them is emanating from a discriminatory point of view, they wouldn't even have a hang of it. I knew what's happening. So I was able to kind of straddle that area. Even it's not that I did not in the personal space. Yeah, but in my childhood and unmarried years, there was no question of any kind of discrimination or inequality in my house, and that's quite predictable. Also, you could see. On the contrary, there was a lot of thrust on your own stability, your own professional excellence, and we were told. I was told, ki in Marathi, ki नवरा नाही मिळाला तर चालेल पण नोकरी पाहिजे. If you don't get a husband, if your husband says that don't do a job, you leave him, but don't leave your job. You leave him, but there's no question of leaving your job. So that was a kind of culture, and we saw all the women around us, being a very good balance. And it wasn't about having too much of a masculine energy or being too much of a feminist. No, not at all. We had never heard about what this feminism and all is. I swear there was nothing feminism and all that was so alien to us.
Yeah.
Our lives as Phule Ambedkarite was much beyond feminism already.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So all that equality I have seen my father being an equal partner to my mom in the kitchen, in other areas. In fact, when she was working, he was doing most of the stuff and she was only doing the other stuff, whereas he was also a working person in government press. Same I saw with my elder Masi, other Masi, and everyone. They were like strong women. And they were women in the real sense of the word, in the way Dr. Ambedkar had said. And I saw my mother-father's relationship, my Masi's relationship with her husband being more as friends. I've never seen any kind of domestic violence in my house or in my relative's house or anything. That concept was never ever there. So, and of course, in my case, my brothers and me, even though I was the eldest, it was, I remember, like I was given the priority. I was always given the priority.
Yeah, actually, I've met many of women from Ambedkarite movements who actually saw Baba Sahib or even worked with him at some point of time, and found them very enlightened and very refreshing. I met Bebita Kamble in Paltan. I met Kumud Pavadeji in Nagpur. Yes. And, speaking to them was like, just listening to them and, so I just want to hear about your Masi who presided over the Scheduled Caste Federation Women's Meet in 1942. What were the vision of that meet for women, particularly the Bahujan women's?
Yeah, so my maternal aunt, Sulochana Bai Dongre, she was staying in Amravati at my Nana's place as a joint family, means, being the daughter-in-law. And my Mama, Sadashiv Dongre, he was a major in the army at that time. Okay, so he was on a transferable job, and that time when she got initiated, if right from the time when she had a first child, before that also, when she was working with Dr. Ambedkar, she would be going to other district places in and around, not only being stationed in her place, but in Amravati, but other nearby places, town places, villages, and all. So she was pretty mobile. She was, and my Nana, they cooperated with her. They allowed her to go. Thereafter, if you come, and even during her pregnancy days, also she used to be going and working with women, and they formed a huge this thing. I remember before the SCF, Scheduled Caste Federation Conference, I am told by my other Masis that they traveled up till Parbhani, Pune, and CP Berar, and the other areas also to organize women, galvanize women for the conference. So they travel pretty widely. She was very clear. I guess she had a elementary knowledge of English as well, and she was very proficient. She was very beautiful in the traditional standards, and my mama maternal uncle used to make everything easy for her, provide everything for her. Okay, cutting the whole thing short, in the Scheduled Caste Federation, what was happening in the larger societal context is something which is very interesting. Whereas Mr. Gandhi was propounding a Sita kind of a model for women, a women sacrificing model for average women, and another for the elite women, it was, giving your money and being part of the freedom movement. But there was no talk of any rights. There was no talk of any cultural orientation. There was no talk of any more reformation in the women's space. No, we will do it for you. We'll see what. Even Sarojini Naidu, they were eloquent in English.
More patronizing kind of approach.
Patronizing, and they were. Sarojini Devi Naidu was eloquent. She went to US and she spoke that now we are coming to the US and speaking. But what are you speaking? What are you speaking for the women, for the sake of Indian women's rights? Yeah. What about their other suffrage? What about their personal rights? What about their familial rights? What about the inheritance right? What about their control over their body? Whether they can divorce? What about polygamy? What about this? Everything. And this was, if you read the Scheduled Caste resolutions, the Women Conference resolutions, they were revolutionary in each and every sense. And it's such a pathetic state of affairs. It's such a malady that they have not been given that kind of a prominence. However, those resolutions actually became the base of Hindu Code Bill later on. That kind of a discourse, that kind of a narrative, that kind of crystallization of things related to all the women in particular, all women, and something which will also reach the SC/ST, the last women in the crowd. It was taken care of. So, and there were pretty radical things, talking about that polygamy has to be. None of the elitist Savarna women ever talked against polygamy. They were narrating the same thing, that if the woman is also agreeing, if the man is also agreeing, then what's the problem?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's horrific. So anyway, that's really,
that was legitimized in the terms of this so-called Bombay cinema. The cinema of Meena Kumari kind of approach, you beat me up, but keep me your dasi kind of thing.
Yeah, that kind of a thing. Yeah. So, and this was also propounded by Mr. Gandhi and his stooges and all the other people, the Congress people, that was the basic approach that they had. So it was nothing, but these people's resolutions were totally radical. They talked about man-woman relationship, right from the personal space to the societal space, and right from the inheritance rights to the public rights that they should get, right from maternity leave to this leave, the labor leave, everything. For every space, they had a very clear-cut understanding, and they were very vociferous because Dr. Ambedkar ensured that the women conference happens after the main conference on a separate day, and it doesn't get mixed. And he had told the women over there that I'll be just a bystander, but it's you who are going to actually lead it and make it happen. And he was just sitting over there, and they They moved the resolution, they passed the resolution, they gave the introduction, they gave the speeches. Dr. Ambedkar was just sitting over there, and at the end, he just kind of, gave a conclusory remarks or speech. So that kind of autonomy is which was seen. It really, however, what happens is that 1942 later on, for another 5 years or so, Sulochana Bai Dongre continues with her work, and in one of the pregnancy, subsequently, when she was moving around and in pregnant status also she was moving around, it became a dangerous pregnancy, and then the baby was born, but then subsequently after maybe 21 days or so, she expired. Yeah, so that was it. But then she left a huge amount of work, and people are writing about her. I myself, we have done a small short story on her, and I am planning a book already. Things are there, and a documentary on her, to commemorate her, commitment to society and the great work that she did. The 1942 Mahila Kranti Parishad, the Nagpur women, we have formed a huge body. And Kranti Parishad, every year we conduct that Parishad, and the Parishad became, it started in 2017 in Chalo Nagpur rally, where she was the main highlight. And I was given the presidentship of the conference because they were commemorating 1942 conference, women all over India. And I being her niece or somebody who's very closely related to her in legacy, not out of blood legacy, but actual legacy of action and work. That is what they gave me as a citation. So then subsequently, we are continuing that work. Yeah.
So in Maharashtra, basically, we always refer to this Phule Ambedkarite movement or Phule Ambedkarite tradition. But it doesn't reflect elsewhere. Normally, when we come to the North India, people are like, just don't use these terminologies. So, and also being Ambedkarite means just being one political party or one association. The other thing is that the difference, like as you say, that your family did not discriminate between you, but the problem is this is the biggest challenge in front of this movement, because we say Jai Bhim, we say Jai Jyoti, Jai Savitri Mai, but still when the question of gender comes, this is a big gap between those who speak a lot about these things and dealing at their own families or with their colleagues at the places. Because the presence of women in the movement is still not satisfying.
Let me kind of bring it out a little threadbare in a way, if you allow me.
Yeah.
See, Vidyabhushan, actually it all depends upon, as I said, the elements which you have been introduced to. Your educational status, the legacy status, your own conscious effort within the family, not the woman's conscious effort, everyone, what you're coming with. So it's a capital. What is the capital that you are coming with? And because the Brahminical thought, it's a huge thing which is already on it. Now, what is the immunity shield that you have developed around yourself? What are the layers? Which orbit are you in? If you have the educational status shield, then the discrimination and the Brahminical mindset and Brahminical terror, which takes place within the families, inside the family, that is less. So educational status matters. Then whether you've been initiated or you're already having those values, Phule Ambedkarite values in your previous generation or in and around you, that immunity shield matters. In the society that you're living, see, for me, it's a huge, if you take a woman, SC, ST, OBC woman who is staying in Ramdaspet or any other area of Nagpur, vis-a-vis Dr. Manisha Bangar or any other woman who's staying in Indora, there's a hell of a difference.
Yeah.
Okay, because we knew how to fight it out. Then our own standing, the economic status of the family matters. Which schooling you have undergone, So the socio-economic legacy and thought process, it all matters. Now let me come to this particular thing. So whereas this remains, and always there should always be introspection within the fully Ambedkarite community and the Bahujan Samaj to see how much of a patriarchy is there and how much we vulnerable to patriarchal norms and observances. That introspection should be going on, but there has been a bigger mischief which has happened over the past 20, 30 years. And that is a mischief which is consistently been done by the Savarna women who are supposedly coming from the communist and liberal background. Whereas these women have vehemently and very horribly, very pathetically failed sincerely in evaluating how horribly Brahminical and patriarchal and so, how their own men could be so cruel in their observances of patriarchy within home, in the society, in their colonies, in their communities, and of course politically also. They have never really given too much of a thought for it. They have just sidelined it or neglected. That doesn't become their body of research and body of study. They have just transported into onto scheduled caste, especially Ambedkarites. And very interestingly and very funnily, they have left the entire OBC Samaj in between. Also, why? They are not, you don't see the Savarna women talking about patriarchy in the OBC people. No, because OBC people are already in their garb. They are in their control. They are in their purview. They are within their influence. So for them, it becomes easier to manipulate them. But people from the scheduled caste and Ambedkarites who have gone out and are questioning the Savarna feminism, Savarna intelligence, Savarna men's, approach towards the radical movement, or whether they are doing anything or they're just making up a show, their fakeness, their fallacies, their total incompetencies, their absolute lack of merit, all this which comes from Ambedkarism. So the Ambedkarites have become a very sure shot attack. And they are attacking in the name of feminism, in the name of Dalit patriarchy, and for that is a big hoax.
I agree with.
It's a big hoax. Yeah,
I agree with you on this point absolutely, because there is when we talk about this, actually in terms of Dalit and Adivasi, there's no question, because they live in collectives. They live in the spirit of togetherness. Yes. Rather than
but at the same time, what I'm saying is uniformly as a whole, whatever kind of domestic violence is happening all over this thing, the entire society is equally affected. However, if the socioeconomic status is less, then definitely, because other factors play a lot of role. Your porosity, the porosity of your shield increases if your socioeconomic status is not good, because you've got to depend on other institutions, other areas, other ideologies for your sustenance, and that becomes makes you more vulnerable. So that is it. Now, but now coming to another very important area. So where does the discrimination play out then? If it is not so vehemently, when as bad as it is compared to other communities in India, if you look at the educational status when you bring the combination of Buddhism and Ambedkarism, definitely things become more better. And the current indices show us that their educational status is better, the literacy state is better, the employment state is better, the domestic violence goes down, the infant mortality rate is better, the maternal mortality is better. So Ambedkarism and Buddhism, when both the enlightening ideologies come together, then naturally the performance on all the standards is much, much better for these communities. But individually also, even without Buddhism also, Ambedkarite families are showing a good. Then where does patriarchy come into place? Now, since I am a person who has not only dabbled in the personal zone as well as in professional zone, I have actually, there have been so many people who have been telling that, Dr. Manisha, whenever she's always seen around men, or men are around her, or she's there. But that's so natural, because being in medicine, being in the topmost colleges, being in the area that I am, being in social area, so I have seen different kind of men, and so many men and men. So it's like men and men. So the thing is, now where does patriarchy come into place? I will not talk, in this particular question of yours, I'm not going to be talking about the patriarchy which is exercised and the caste discrimination which is exercised by Savarna men and the Brahmin Savarna men in my educational institutes. I will not touch upon them. I'm trying to touch upon the question which you asked about Bahujan, patriarchy within the Bahujan or SC, ST, OBC or Ambedkarite thing. This comes to play not at the at the very base level. There's a huge difference between the patriarchy, which is the Savarna patriarchy, and the Bahujan patriarchy, which manifest, and that comes into play in organizations. Okay. So in organizations, in force, when you reach to a certain level of leadership, when you reach to a certain level of raising your voice, when you reach to a certain levels of telling the men that no, they are wrong, that their thinking is wrong, or that you have a better thought than them, or you write better than them, or you speak better than them, or that you are performing better than them in each and every area. So those are the areas where their patriarchy, their discrimination manifests. So in organizations, definitely it comes. They don't today. The Bahujan organizations, even BAMSEF, is not giving due space to women. Despite being, I do not arrogate any kind of arrogance to myself, but it's the profile which shows, consistently that. But I had to really fight out a lot for my responsibilities that were given to me. And right now also, there are many questions that I have in mind, I have raised, and there were repercussions. The men in the organization of BAMSEF are not letting a woman lead the movement at all. They are not. And there are so many feelers, so many people that Dr. Manisha is there, so and so is there, she is there, and they have no answer. They're only this thing is a gross patriarchy which is there at that level. So at that level is there. But in the organizational level, there's a huge difference between Savarna patriarchy, Savarna people, Congress people, BJP people, or communist people, how they behave with the organizational women, and how Bahujans behave is a huge difference. In the Bahujan organization, there is no sexual exploitation. Mm-hmm. There is, they do not, I have myself seen within Congress, I've interacted with so many women who are in Savarna organizations. There's a huge, sexual exploitation in there. There's a lot of trapping. There's a lot of nefarious activities. And of course, the traditional way of thinking and, making them feel lesser than themselves. So those things don't operate. It's a very, very clean area, I would say. It's a very clean area. At least I did not suffer. I did not see many women suffering for that matter. Many of my women. So, and I have my own experience because I've been around with men, so many different kind of men. So within my BAMSEF also, when men enter from, who are non-BAMSEFites or non-Ambedkarites, their approach towards me and towards other women is drastically different from the ones who are initiated. So, however, that lecherousness, that dangerous, uncomfortability that make you feel, that approach, that sexism, that is not there. But yes, of course, these women will also try to deride you. अरे आपको तो कुछ आता नहीं, आपको तो समझ में नहीं आ रहा है, अच्छा महिला ऐसे होती है, ऐसे आपका सोचना होता है. And then when they can't do that, when they know that you are too much strong educationally and every way, then they just very silently ignore you and they will sideline you. So that is the kind of thing that is there. But it's not a brutal sexism that you see. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Because most of the time I've seen in the villages when I work with communities, and I found how, if the man hit a wife, the wife can also slap the man. This is many there. And they're quite, and they after some time they again start smiling, laughing, apne ghar chale jayenge, kaam karte karte. So this is there. But I know this thing, this is very important point. I have raised this point at many, many forums, because what these, what you call, people try, why don't they allow you to speak for yourself, your agency to speak for yourself? When they say women will speak for women, so why can't the Bahujan women speak for Bahujan women?
Yeah, so actually, see, if I talk about BAMSEF right now, Mr. Vaman Meshram is the most important, bigger kind of a visible kind of a activity happening. Another is Mr. Borkar and his so-called. Yeah. attached with Mr. Borkar. Still now, even after 20 years, both the so-called outfits are named by them. They are identified by them.
Yeah.
And what is the thing that they have done so that it is not identified in that way? What is their responsibility? What was their work in this regard? It was none. Because then you've got to take concrete steps, right? If they had made Dr. Manisha Bangar as the president or any other person, here also, that's where they're very cunning in this also. So you remember the cunningness of the Congress people and Mr. Gandhi and other people, that they will keep a scheduled caste person, but they will keep an ineffective scheduled caste person or uneducated person. So what they do is, they, अच्छा आपने बोला क्या कि महिला चाहिए, तो एक ना वो जो उनके कंट्रोल में रहेगी, जो नहीं, they know that she will not be able to raise a voice, or she's not capable enough to raise or to question them, or to question certain policies or approach or programming, or only saying कि नहीं ये program ऐसे नहीं होगा, ये program इस तरह से होगा, इतना भी नहीं उनको, they don't want that. So there have been multiple feelers to Mr. Borkar many a times. I remember the 2008 conference when Rajshekhar Wondru had come as a one of the guests, and he said that, and I was leading the conference, it was a women conference. So he questioned Mr. Borkar कि आप इनको क्यों नहीं बनाते हैं बामसेफ का president? हाँ बनेंगे. And right till now, I have raised so many questions and so many I have written down to them. You tell me why I should not be the president of BAMSEF. There is no answer.
But I see it is probably the autonomous women are despised by men. Normally, the women who can take decision on their own.
No, it's not autonomous. I feel it's not autonomous because here I was not being autonomous.
Autonomous means independent women. Independent women means you can take decision on your own. So I'm not saying you won't take decision with collective. Politically, so everybody has to take inclusiveness. Yes. But they fear because
they had the temerity and the audacity to put faith on incapable truant men, incapable inefficient women, not capable, or rather they are in the process of becoming more capable. They wouldn't mind that, but they don't want a woman who will bring about a collective consensus, who will lead, who will learn, who will make, and who will be inspiring for others. To a certain level, they let me come up. And then there's a total silence. There is no saying no. At the same time, not letting it happen. Just not letting it happen. Just sabotaging it. Sabotaging it totally. Yeah.
That is where the main worry is. Actually, we have to bring this success to Ambedkarite, Phule, Andolan, everywhere.
Yeah.
The women have to take a lead now because this is the biggest worry also of the movement because Baba Saheb's movement had so many women. Phule has, Savitribai Phule, and Periyar had also women. So all these legacies are very rich legacies, but we are not seeing that on the ground.
Yeah, and in the entire duration of my time that I was in BAMSEF, never did I play upon my accomplishments or a legacy from my family side because, we believe in doing it ourselves. So that was never an issue at all. It was like कि आप उनको देखिए capability है कि नहीं है. So I remember it's a very funny thing. It so happened, now that we have touched that point, it so happened that almost for 2-3 years, there were so many people from the society who were not a part of BAMSEF or this thing, telling कि आपके सामने है, आप बनाते क्यों नहीं है? Why is she not there? I know she probably, there are certain qualities that she has will make a dent with the people, the connect, and women leadership. This is the time when women leadership should be. And आप लोगों को my main worry was Vidya Bhushan that we took 20 years to hone a certain XYZ person who is known as Dr. Manisha Bangar today. Those 20 years you honed her, skilled, made her better, and then you just deny that person. Means you are actually sabotaging the movement. You are actually causing a harm to the movement. Those people who laid the faith on you. There's a Mr. Nitin Meshram, he's a Supreme Court lawyer. He tweeted to Mr. Borkar कि आप अभी आप ही क्यों लीड कर रहे हैं, आप younger generation को दीजिए. So he had no answer. I have wrote so many letters. There is no answer. So that is it. And then they have the audacity and the temerity to say and ask कि organizations टूटते क्यों हैं? अरे आप capable लोगों को नहीं बनने दोगे, then are their lives at the mercy of your decision making? do they not have their own purpose in life? Do they not
No,
have their own
at least
commitment?
there should be a link कि एक term हो, दो term हो, कोई भी आदमी हो, whether you making woman or man, at least after some time, it has to change that. जब पंचायतों में इलेक्शन होते तो आजकल हम कहते हैं ना कि भाई 5 year में रिजर्व होती है सीट, तो why that whole issue not implemented at their own level?
No, in whereas Mr. Vaman Vishram, he did not do that at all. He just had some nominated people here and there. But Mr. This Borkar and we all are together. We had that rotation of having different. So we had that. But then in the thing, they were only men, and there were certain men who were like who were not at present at the international level, national level. They could not be spokesperson. They could not be anywhere, but still they were made for some rhyme or reason. Even a very ordinary master in a very remote place of MP was made a president, a general secretary. But why not Dr. Manisha Bangar? I don't understand. So this a lawyer he asked, and he had no answer. Absolutely. So this is a total dishonesty. This is intellectual and a movement, a dishonesty to movement. I feel, and this has to change. This definitely. And this I'm talking about an organization which is considered to be the most filtered and the most this thing. So
we always speak when we see Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar said, everybody says about representation, power.
Yeah.
So unless we give in our organization fair representation and the decision-making bodies,
yes.
And so it's essential. Otherwise, it will not work.
Yes. So for a certain time, I thought that because I am not asking or I'm not moving my thing forward, probably that's why. Then when I started asking, then again it was denied, and it is denied and denied that way.
No, this is sad. This is also because most of the organizations have become Swayambhu organizations. That one person organization.
Yes,
and we always oppose, dictatorship. We always say this is that. But the Sangh Parivar, the RSS, they sit all the time. Yeah. They will make a decision-making body. So we criticize them, but we know that they have a governing body. Yes. But those who are fighting against them, and who say Manuvadi is the worst, have actually no such autonomous decision.
Autonomy, and that kind of it calls for some kind of a morality. You can't question the morality of others, when you do not have your own organizational morality in place.
Yeah, that is very, very true.
Yeah,
that's very true. And this is very important question. Hopefully, people will realize it, those who decision making or who are thinking, and ask them for a election and whatever way. This should be a demand that at least when these organizations are people's organization, there should be the elections in every 3 years or 4 years, whatever the constitution says that way. But it should not be, appointed like, some priestly class appoint, this chelas or somebody at the president.
And so there's a very thin line between, so-called democratically elected or nominated thing and a coterie. So here, what I see is a coterie is getting operated. Whereas on one side, we see what you call a familial thing like Parivarvad. Yeah. We see hero worship and cult in various organizations of the Savarnas and this particular thing I would call a coterie of people. Yeah. An oligarchy, which is in place and denying, and they have no reason why they are denying. Yeah, so that.
But that is the reason why they're not even growing that way.
Exactly.
Frankly speaking, they're not growing, and everybody is coming to Uttar Pradesh. So I asked this question: why you come to Uttar Pradesh only? Why not to Bihar? Why not to Madhya Pradesh? Why not to Maharashtra? Because Uttar Pradesh there is one BSP working. So you may agree or not agree, but that is the party which is at the moment existing. So politically we may differ, but why all the BAMSEP come in Uttar Pradesh and why not in say Rajasthan fighting elections? So this is this question many times people ask because they feel that this become a part of conspiracy theories. Now election will happen in UP, and I see many people from Maharashtra coming in UP campaigning from different angles, and so this people obviously ask this question: why these people coming to Uttar Pradesh? Who are they going to benefit ultimately? Because
actually we have diversity in People's Party of India Democratic. When I was an NVP, we first started off in MP, Rajasthan, and the focus wasn't so much UP for us. So those the kind of things we put in place when we were taking care. Yeah.
Yeah, because Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan, these are the regions which actually the Dalit movement need to grow now,
Yes.
at least.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's thank you very much for this. This is very important. Now I want to come to a very important question. Maybe today we lost Gail Ombit, one of the very well-known, internationally acclaimed author, activist from in Maharashtra. I would say now she was a Maharashtrian. Obviously, she was born in America, but after 70s, lived all her life in Kasegaon. How do you remember her? How is your understanding of Gail Ombit's vast legacy?
Oh, it's very, I mean, like, she is a researcher, very honest researcher, a very good writer. And despite being, born and brought there, she kind of got into the groove of the Indian fabric, the Indian ethos, and especially Phule Ambedkarite ethos. And what I strikingly, whereas I have a whole list of, the Understanding Caste is what she wrote, Ambedkar Towards an Enlightened India. She wrote Patriarchy in 1986, Seeking Begumpura, Social Vision of Anti-Caste Intellectuals in 2008, Dalits and Democratic Revolution, Dr. Ambedkar, a Dalit Movement in Colonial Times, Dalit Visions, Buddhism in India, Challenging Brahminism and Caste, Building Ambedkar Revolution, Cultural Revolt in Colonial Society, Seeking Begumpura. So you can imagine the expanse of her work. This particular expanse is not only based in the past or but she was a very, very contemporary woman and very interested in figuring out how the past has impacted the present and what could be the next vision for the swaths of land on which the people are living. Her partner and husband, Mr. Bharat Patankar, was already a part of a communist and a Krishi movement. Together, blended into one. I guess he was working with Sharad Comrade Patil also, Sharad Patil. I do not know the details, but yes, they were the first meeting that I had with her was when she was probably documenting certain elements of Buddhism for her upcoming book. And she was in Manuski in Pune. I happened to be in Pune at the same time for my national convention of BAMSIF. And there was one area that I had to cover. I was doing some field work also. So I was staying in Manuski and we both were sharing the room. I found her to be very focused. I remember that she would hardly speak. She was always on a computer within the room also. There was no kind of a, like normally the curtsy talk that aap kahan se ho, main kahan se hu, maine ye kiya, wo kiya, no nonsense talk. We were very pointedly talking about very important issues, and there were certain things that I said I'll need her help with, or I'll take her some material from her, and she gladly agreed to that. And we stayed for almost 4 or 5 days together, but then she was totally busy with her work. I was busy with my work. And there were very good times when we were sharing our joint, and she wanted to know more about BAMSIF, and I was asking her about her next venture. So those were the kind. I found her to be very disciplined, very, very disciplined as per her time management is concerned. And I would really want to, take those elements from her. Very inspiring. Of course, definitely her writing skills, and writing is a major problem that we all juggle with. We all have a challenging thing to say. Second time I met when she was invited as a faculty at one of her training sessions in Pune. We were for the BAMSIF cadres. So that time she had come, and she was largely, I introduced her and I was giving the introductory remark for her talk. And then I was the one who concluded the session. And that is the time when Bharat was also there, Mr. Bharat was also there, and we interacted for a long time. Her faculties were very good at that time. She was very thriving, she was very humorous also. She came up with very good phrases and very good punchlines and things like that. So that was very amusing about her. And thirdly was when I kind of, she sent me books, Seeking Begumpura. I think I bought them or she sent me something of that sort. But all my international diaspora work that I undertook almost from 2007 till date, giving talks right from Italy, Belgium to France and UK among the Ravidasis and in the Sikh community and among the SC/ST OBCs in US and UK. There was a whole area of work that probably you must have seen in my CV, where I was practically every year going and talking to people. And because the Ravidasi community, I was also in charge of Punjab in my Bansef days for a long time, almost for 8 years. So when I was addressing the Indian Ravidasi community or Punjabi community or Sikh community, and whether I was addressing them outside of India, Seeking Begumpura and other, her work really gave me that body of information, the knowledge, the exact, line of action to be taken, and this thing. So for a long period of time, my talks, my writing, and my discourse was heavily did come in because it was a very contemporary vision that came, and I could translate it to them, and I could also quote it and reference it to students, to university students, because many of them would not want to identify with Begumpura of Ravidas per se himself. But then when Ravidas Guru is himself contextualized in the present moment, in the 21st century, then it becomes easier for them. For different audience, I had to take it differently,
Yes.
I had a
We know
different
that
audience
it's
each
very,
time. My
it's become very
expense of,
sentimental issue for many then.
yeah. So when I'm in Punjab, I'm talking to the villagers, but when I'm in US, I'm talking to students who are from the other children. So the audience also varied a lot for me. So this became a very good, handy thing for me to substantiate my arguments upon and things like that. Then, of course, I remember when we had a brainstorming session in BAMSEF about when Dr. Maske was the president of BAMSEF at that time. Dr. Maske himself is a very enlightened person. He also is in charge of Naglok these days, taking care of that area. And so we had a brainstorming session, and we wanted to, we had a lot of challenge in making people understand the Mool Nivasi concept. There was a lot of opposition to Mool Nivasi concept from Maharashtra itself, all over India. Of course, there was RSS to karta hi hai, lekin from within the community there was, and we were brainstorming of how we could, conceptualize in a more concrete manner on the basis of very data and knowledge and everything. ये सब चल रहा था. So during that time only, then I came to, Dr. Sarunkhe's Bari Vansh came, and then Bari Vansh was also being criticized to a large extent. And the ones who were criticizing were the Brahmins of Maharashtra, and along with them, the Maharathas and the OBCs and the SCs also, who are friends with these Brahmins and Savarnas. Their main work of the Brahmins of Maharashtra is to corrupt the minds of the scheduled caste over there. And, the scheduled caste intelligentsia, so-called, they feel a certain kind of pride to associate with them. And in that pride and in that, they literally mess up with the whole thing. So anyhow, we were debating on all these things. That is the time I presented a thesis. I presented a presentation in which I kind of contextualized Bali Raja. Bali Raja into the current times. And I presented a thesis saying that Mool Nivasi is not the end identity. It is not the end all and be all. It is, Mool Nivasi only means indigenous. But if we have to identify ourselves in different spheres of life, for our constitutional demands, okay, we are the SCBC or we are the SC/ST OBC. When it comes to Karigar, we comes to what do you call atrocities, and suppose if you want to talk about the literature and things like that, then we have to probably mention the even if not by chance, but at least consciously we have to mention that. But we do not have to restrict ourselves. But yes, we are conscious of the fact that it should be a unifying identity. It should be an aggrandizing identity. It should be a pride-giving identity. It should be a colossal identity. And it should be something which is rooted identity. So that rootedness was something what I was seeking out. And the additional element was provided by Bali Raja and the Bali kingdom, whether as a form of vision or whatever. So this is how I a kind of
Actually, one of the reason is because your organization mostly come in North India a lot, and people are not aware of the Bali Raja concept, and many of them start thinking that ये फिर ब्राह्मणिकल बीच में लाने लगे।
नहीं ऐसा नहीं है।
जैसे मैंने एक लेख लिखा था त्योहारों का बहुजनीकरण होना चाहिए।
Yes,
तो वो बेसिकली एम ये था कि you should not get away from just banging on the head, because the Brahmins have incorporated your festivals. तो ये जो भी फेस्टिवल्स है वो they were basically of the farmers, so the किसान मजदूर के फेस्टिवल्स थे, indigenous people's festivals थे, and the Brahmins have to de-Brahmanize them and use them an opportunity to reach to people.
Yes.
तो उसपे बहुत सारे
With their question, am I being seen on the big screen or in the small? Because I am seeing in the small for myself. Okay, fine. Probably it may be appearing as small.
So the point is लोग हर चीज पे थोड़ा सी डिबेट नहीं करना चाहते, एकदम पे जो है वो कॉन्स्पिरेसी पे आ जाते हैं और वो चीज है। अब जैसे बलि राजा का है तो वी नो, आई वाज अ पार्ट ऑफ दिस व्हेन गेल एंड अदर्स स्टार्टेड अ मूवमेंट, बलि राजा movement, cultural movement, and it's such an important point.
It is. And if at all, there are myths also. So myths also have had a whole lot of interpretations, and they have been done with a purpose. When people have no qualms in absorbing a myth of a 4-tier system of head and shoulder and all that bullshit, when they can easily absorb that, why not something which has been there in the folklore? Let us demystify it. Let us look at it intelligently. Let us rationalize it. Let us look into archaeological evidences. Let us look into linguistic evidences. Let us do that. But there is no point in just sorting it out. I mean, like if I'm asked, I see the same similarity of what Jyotirao Phule was doing and what Ayodhya Das was doing over there. So how can we just leave all that of it aside? How we can leave it?
That has been the biggest drawback but when I see BAMSEF people, because that is where I tell many of them when they come to meetings, and I have organized many in Uttar Pradesh and Bihar, and the man will start and they will start with the gods and तुम्हारे भगवान ऐसे होते हैं, वो ये होता है वो होता है, तो उससे करके जो आधे लोग हैं, मतलब basically I tell them, if you are speaking only in front of the converted, then there is no point, your movement will never grow. You have to reach.
That is true. But this particular difference is seen among the North Indian BAMSEF, or they are the newcomers, those who are seasoned.
No, काफी senior लोग बोलते हैं, जो मतलब बोलते हैं कि आप इतने साल से मूवमेंट पे हैं, because उनको शुरू से जो पाठ पढ़ाया गया ना, see, what is the problem is that I'm saying is, problem is वो alternative की कोई बात नहीं करता ना, वैसे जब हम बोलते हैं बुद्धिज्म, जैसे I am saying बुद्धिज्म अभी जो है पूरा उत्तर भारत में खास करके से कुशीनगर, I'm seeing even the OBCs are now embracing Buddhism, and there is a new way. So हम उसको बोलने कि आप अपना way of life, see, why you waste your time in the other way of life? If Dr. Ambedkar or Jyotirao Phule or these people have given you a way of life, come in it. लेकिन लोग धीरे धीरे करके आते हैं, जैसे जो एक छठ फेस्टिवल होता है, छठ फेस्टिवल आप जानते हैं, it's a people's festival actually. Of course the Brahmins will use it and whatever, superstition भी है, gender भी है, सब कुछ है, लेकिन ये पीपल्स फेस्टिवल है, उस पे पहली बार लास्ट 2 years में मैंने देखा है, women's were having Buddha and Ambedkar with their जो वो नदी पे आते हैं लेकर के उनके फोटोग्राफ। तो दिस इज, ये जो ब्राह्मणिकल सिस्टम पे जो चोट होती है धीरे धीरे करके होगी, and ultimately it will come, and you say education will come, family people will start educating their children and giving them a bit autonomy over.
I would like to add a little point over here. See, the thing is, when BAMSEF differs, and our thinking also, I totally agree with this particular thing. The approach, I don't agree with the approach. If anybody is adopting, we still have our ideologue, Mr. S.F. Gangamane, who is still alive, but right now he's unwell, and he was a national pracharak. And National Pracharak, he used to be very categorically saying that you don't have to attack their observances and this thing. Because instead of they coming to you, they will go 10 meters away, and if they go 10 meters away, they go 10 meters away, they will be landing in RSS camps, not here. Okay, exactly. So that is the understanding. But of course, till the time it is percolated, and that over enthusiasm, that new founded enthusiasm which is there in cadres, that makes them a little more aggressive and more this thing.
वही उनको because the UP success हो गया ना, UP में थोड़ा जैसे BSP की success हुई थी, तो initial stage से वो ज्यादा हुआ, because they were not able to bring other communities ना, See, if you are
Exactly.
bringing the Bahujan में तो बहुत communities हैं. So if you are bringing just one or two communities in your level, so other will go to the Sangh Parivar. So
Yes,
what
yes,
happens with that?
yes. And but here I would myself would not want to go ahead with Buddhism right away. I
Yeah,
would want
no.
them to be an anti-Brahmin or
Yeah,
non-Brahmin space for certain time. Like the OBCs, they
yeah.
never really had to, to be told.
I
They
think,
themselves kind of
yeah,
got
yeah.
it.
वो जो,
So yeah,
yeah, I
let
agree with
it
that
be.
point.
Yeah, and because it's a
See,
minimalizing thing. Yeah, it's a
you
restrictive
see
thing.
that a very interesting part lesson can be learned from Periyar's movement.
Yes,
See,
yes,
he says non-Brahmin movement
yes,
and brought all together.
yes.
वो उतना डिबेट करने का टाइम नहीं था कि
I
तुमको
know.
ज्यादा है थोड़ा कम है. Then after that, Tamil Nadu has really worked very
Yeah.
well, much better than any other state.
Yeah, it wasn't even known as anti-Brahmin, it was known as non-Brahmin. That's it.
Non-Brahmin movement, not anti.
Not anti.
Not anti.
It was
No.
non-Brahmin movement. So because we have our own very organic culture.
Yeah. And he actually spoke of that. North India में तो problem है, people bring particularly जो BAMSET के लोग हैं, पेरियार को केवल जो है वो राम का abuse का उस पे लाते हैं. और I told them, and I have spoken to Dr. D. Veeramani कई बार, उन्होंने उनसे बात की. 3 times I interviewed Dr. Veeramani, and Dr. Veeramani gives example. Periyar's work is not merely abusing gods. Please understand, he was a rationalist. He was not any street person. He was a rationalist. He was critiquing the Brahminism through a very rationalistic perspective, how it treated the marginalized people, majority people, Dravidians. So, and then the main question was representation and power, and how the backward classes, the Dalit came into power structure in Tamil Nadu. That is a history has to be understood.
Yes. So Gail Ahmedji her writings will be inspiring to many people like us, and her body of work will be really a big treasure. It is a big treasure for people to formulate their political agenda, cultural agenda more than political, and social agenda and social vision. It's a huge. And what I feel is that this thrust on research, this thrust on analysis, this thrust on original research, this is pretty much lacking in the Bahujan movement. And this we have to bring it in the fold of various organizations, because if we have to make it a long-lasting, durable movement, then research has to be from our side. We have to be at the, we have to make the hypothesis, we have to see for the supporting arguments, we have to see for supporting evidences, we have to be the agency, not the...
Absolutely. That's true, because institution building is very, very important.
Institution.
I felt it very, and as you said, that Gail was very disciplined. I say I've met so many Ambedkarites, and some of them I was like my gurus and icon, I would say. Bhagwan Das ji, L.R. Bali, Raja Dhale, all I interviewed, and all Bhagwan Das ji I knew very well, V.T. Rajasekhar. And I can tell you that they were so disciplined. अभी अगर हम LR बाली साहब के पास जाते हैं ना, तो वो आपको पूछेंगे कि भाई मेरा टाइम बहुत कीमती है. At 90, he is so determined, working and writing. So he has found that the importance of documenting things. I think that is important for our younger generation to keep the spirit of the, like Maharashtra में तो काफी documentation हुआ है. It should be done elsewhere also. So success stories, successful movements, and other things which is grassroots, वो भी document करने की जरूरत है through their own perspective. That's very important. Now I come to this point that we are in this age of media explosion, fake news, and narratives being built through media. When did you realize that we need a Bahujan media which can, counter narratives, and what is it? How do you perceive it, and when did you start your national channel on YouTube?
So you're asking about National India News, which we started the digital platform. Yeah, this was started in 2017, but the idea came a little before that, somewhere around 2015, 2016. But then, of course, when I was in BAMSEF, all throughout the years, we could see the mischief of the mainstream media, and constantly discussions on media, the what you call anti-Bahujan attitude of media, the very cruel attitude of media, the very terrorizing attitude of media, the distorting attitude of media, the non-representative character of media, and the total control and what you call presence of one particular caste or one particular varna within the media. The corporatization of media, all these were very live issues, and every year through various sessions and state conventions, district conventions, at least one topic used to be on media. So this particular thing was going on. And this actually started much earlier at the time of Kashiramji, and thereafter also in uniformly all the cadres, all the people, and those who were reaching in Maharashtra, many more places, we distinctly knew that we don't have to depend on this media. We knew it very well that we don't have to listen to it. We don't have to form our opinion on basis of it. But we were aware that we as cadres may not, but the entire society's opinions are being formed by the same media. Okay. So, but I didn't come so close, in person, face to face, or directly interacting with them, or because they always neglected. I remember when a big conference of women was happening in 2008 in Maharashtra, in Fort area, we conducted a big, in press club, we conducted a big press conference before the conference. And there hardly any mainstream media people came, whereas we were almost like 100, 200 women sitting over there. In adjacent room, there was a communist organization and some liberal organization. Hardly 2 or 3 women were there. And it was full of cameras. And that, it literally shook me, I said, what is this? I mean, why is it happening? And we told that, and we sent people that there's a bigger meeting happening over. They were not interested. They were never bothered. They didn't want to cover us. And it kind of started from there. We didn't have many people, but Lokmat and 2-3 people, Sakar and 2-3 people, they covered us. And we tried to say the maximum, and we did it for our own recording and things like that. We took out a souvenir. So we had our own traditional way of doing things because they were not available to us. And वो तो मालूम ही था कि BAMSEP को वो लोग cover करते ही नहीं है, कि वो हमको blackout करते ही. We used to conduct 10,000 big, people coming in Kasujan Park in Nagpur, in Pune, in all the big cities, 10,000 plus. Never did it find a mention anywhere in the papers, local newspapers also. So that kind of, neglect and disdain contempt was already seen. We lived it all through. Now, the main turning point came in 2015-16, when the Rohit Vemula thing happened. When Rohit Vemula thing happened, that time I used to go to Delhi very often, Jantar Mandir protest, and I was totally involved even in Hyderabad Central University because I was the national vice president of Mool Nivasi Sangh, which was the agitational front of the BAMSEP. And we were very heavily involved. We conducted almost 70 demonstrations all over the country, big ones, within the span of hardly 1 month's time. And I was leading it at every other place. And that is a time when the mainstream media, they saw me, they sought my audience, the interviews and this thing. And that is the time when some Bahujan organizations were also floating there. They like National Dastak and 2-3 more. They were. So they sought my interviews pretty prominently, and like that. Okay, so what was distinctly different? Distinctly different was, I came to know, I saw that it is the mainstream media, which was composed of the BJP, RSS elements, that was not so much of a problem. They had their own way of doing things for many, many years. They were doing it from 10, 20 years. But I could clearly see how the liberal media was playing the mischief. So yeah. So the NDTV, ABP Maza, the Nikhil Wagle kind of Patrakars, the Pandey Shuklas and Kumars, I saw their mischief very clearly. So we could see that the usurpation of Rohit Vemula movement into the communist and making it deflecting it into something else, so that our people got into jails and Bhima Koregaon, that deflection. So then I was constantly observing the liberal media, and it was acting as a conduit, to make things, to villainize the SC/ST OBCs, and at the same time to become their voice, to say things on their behalf, but at the same time not giving any space to them. I remember when I was in Delhi, I had given a message to Mr. Ravish Kumar Pandey. I did not know him personally. I did not know him at all. Some activist told me about him, and he was a Mulyawati Sangh activist. He said, "Ma'am, nowadays he's speaking a lot." I said, "I'm so totally miffed with this mainstream media. They know he's a person. You send him a message." So I gave my entire introduction so that he would know that there's some person of some importance and some national importance speaking to him, and probably he will give some space on the thing, because everybody told me that it's a liberal space. So I sent him a message. It was 26th of January 2016. He reverted back with an answer that, "Oh yeah, we will let you know and we'll call you." Since then I have not heard from him, first and foremost. Secondly, I could see that how the Rohit Vemula movement was distorted, how Kanhaiya Kumar was bought, how they could manage to hold meetings at the WIF. At the if Sheila Rashid says something, they would make a big, huge what you call setup in NDTV and create discussions for hours together. And not even a single schedule caste or a movement person would be there talking about Rohit Vemula. Or very later in time, Rahul Sonpimpre or somebody from JNU was called very rarely. And earlier, I had a lot of humorous moments with Vivek Kumar. I used to joke at him. I used to literally mock him. Vivek ji, आप जाते क्यों हो? आपको दलित चिंतक बनाते हैं. So this kind of branding. That
actually, the problem is that the people themselves allow them to be branded like that, because they also fight 5 minute Ravish Kumar ke saath mein.
I don't know, but I was never mesmerized with all that.
No, we should not get. We should not. These have been the monastery media. I always call them.
Monastery media never, and the Gandhi appropriation kind of approach.
वो शुरू से लेके है. उस पे आप केवल you can depend a little bit of information, whatever it comes to your faith. Otherwise,
so these things came up very, very clearly to me. I could see them very clearly as crystal, as a clear water. I could see that what's happening beneath it. And it didn't even take me hardly 10 days or 5-10 days to understand the whole thing, with my acumen. I immediately decided that let us have our own. It may take time. We will have financial crunches. We have limited resources and this thing, but we took it. I had some like-minded people. This particular platform is outside of the forum of BAMSEF. It is an independent forum, and it has we have ensured, because my critique of the liberal media, whether NDTV or anything, was that they do not give the mic, they do not give us the space, and they do not employ people. They do not bring it in practice, and they usurp our voice. So we made it clear that we will have all Bahujan employees in our this thing. Due representation will be there. And right now there's a moratorium on the upper caste Savarna employees in our channel.
That's fine.
So maybe because this particular media has denied us presence in their side for so long, for almost 70 years. So for the Savarna people to come into our channel will take another 70 years. So we'll see that time.
Okay, no issue at all. But it's good that you have started, and it's important.
Yeah, it has reached a 2 million subscriber base right now, and we have the website is doing good. English, Hindi, and Urdu, 3 languages. It fluctuates a little bit, but Hindi is the main this thing. Okay. We've had a Marathi section also. So after this COVID lull, I could manage it. People who are are my own people who are funding with our own salaries. I'm giving a sizable portion of my establishment savings I put into that, and there is no funding, whereas Wire and News Laundry and NewsClick, they are taking in crores, and they're taking from corporate media. Our media is totally based on our own individualistic contribution. So
Yeah,
it's a good challenge, but
actually,
still it
that's
is.
why I call they are the real alternative media and not those which are funded by the corporate. So
Yes.
these days there is also a very problem. We all think that they are big online channels. So they are not just, they are merely online, but they are corporate sponsored, fully corporate sponsored.
Yes, yes.
So obviously they will serve the corporate interests, be little bit secular,
Yes.
communal, this all.
Yes.
Thoda, thoda,
So
but
yeah, so when I had to apply for Harvard, my Harvard this thing, as well as for my University of Chicago, and there was a conference in Harvard on media. So National India News was mentioned in a big way. There was
okay.
1 or 2 conferences in Canada where we conducted, and University of Chicago gave a lot of credence to the fact that I am being vocal through a digital platform and a media of my own. Yeah.